Hey everyone, this is Sandip back with another video. And in today's video, we are going to continue our Java Bootcamp series. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about Java variables. So these are all the different terms or different items or different agenda items I'm going to cover in this video. So I'm going to talk about variables. What are variables actually? I'm going to talk about types of variables. So there are different types of variables like string, characters, integers, and long decimals. All of these different types of variables are there. And there are more actually, but I'm not going to talk about them. These are some of the most widely used variables which we frequently use while writing our Java program. So I'm going to talk about that. And finally, we're going to have a challenge where we're going to discuss about the challenge. I'm going to challenge you so that you'll get practice of using all of these variables, and I'm going to give you the solution also at the end. So let's jump into the video and let's start by talking about what are variables actually. So variables are nothing like, think of them like a box or a storage space that has been created inside your computer memory. Like, take the example of your kitchen, right? So inside your kitchen, you might have a jar, right? Jar for a sugar, jar for cookies, jar for your tea, coffee, right? There are different items. So this is what, so they're like a container, right? And each container can have different category of data, right? Similarly, in Java programming, we can create these boxes using something called a variable. Okay, so when I create a variable, we actually create a memory space or a box inside our computer memory. Okay. The next thing is I can name that box, right? So I can give that box a name. Like in your kitchen, you can give the name to your boxes like sugar, coffee, tea, something like that. Similarly, you can give name to your boxes, memory spaces in your computer, in your Java program. So like I've given this box a name of name. And finally, you can store some value into it, like name equals to John. So I have created this memory space inside my computer. I give it a name of a name, quite confusing maybe. And I have stored a value of John inside it, like how we are storing sugar into the sugar jar, cookies into the cookie jar, something like that. Okay, so the most important thing, whenever you want to create a data in your Java program, you're going to create the variables. Okay, so let's jump into the coding, right? So I'm going to create a folder here. Let's say 03, and I'm going to call this variables. And I'm going to open it inside my favorite code editor, that is our text editor, Visual Studio Code. And there you go. I have the variables folder. I'm going to start by creating a Java class inside that. So I'm going to create my first class called variables.java. And let's create some variables inside this class. So it has automatically generated the class for me. I don't need to create that. I'm going to put in the main method. So I'm going to use the shortcut of main. And inside this, I'm going to create our first variable. I'm going to name it age is equals to, I'm going to give it a value of 30. So whenever you want to define a variable in Java, there are three things you need to remember. The first one is the data type. Like I said, inside a sugar jar, you are going to keep the sugar, right? So obviously the data type of that particular variable will be, or container will be sugar, right? Similarly, age is a number, right? So whenever you want to store a number, we use integers. So this is the data type of the variable. This is the name of the variable. And this is the value which I'm storing inside that variable. So what's happening behind the scene inside my computer memory, this Java program is creating a variable name, a box name age, which can store integer values. And right now it has the value of 30. Pretty simple, right? Now this age, this name, right? We need to talk about this name also. But before that, let's use the sout system out.println, and maybe I'm going to print this, right? Age is probably, and I'm going to say age. Okay, I'm going to save and I got something. Okay, maybe I need to use plus here. And now, first, you remember the two-step I talked about in the last video when we have written our first Java program, right? So first of all, to say Java C means Java compile, and I'm going to compile my code variables dot Java and file not found inside the variables. Okay, I think I'm going to close this terminal and I'm going to open a new terminal. Maybe that was the old one. So I'm going to say Java C variables dot Java. Okay, it got compiled. You can see the class has been created. And I'm going to run it using Java command. I'm going to press tab, enter. See that? Age 30 is the output. Now let's talk about this name. So whenever we name a variable, right, it has some rules which we need to follow while creating a variable. And it's a good idea if you can remember all those rules, but it will come through a practice when you're going to write some projects, create some projects, you're going to remember it. So if you want, you can always Google it. So I'm going to go back to my browser and I'm going to search for Java variable naming conventions. There you go. You got the answer to it, right? All identifiers should begin with a letter A to Z or A to Z, currency character, or an underscore. So when you start a variable name, it should start with a letter, a capital letter or a small letter, but it shouldn't start with the number. You see that it doesn't work. You shouldn't start your variable with a number, but you can start with a dollar sign or we can start with underscore. That's okay. After the first character identifies, you can have any combination of characters. So you can have 1, 2, 3, 4 after the first character. You can have one here, you can have one here, or anything. Okay. And a keyword cannot be used as an identifier. So if you see here, right, this static is a keyword, this public is a keyword, this void is a keyword, this class is a keyword. So you should name your variable as class, right? Age should be age, something like that. Now coming to the next point, that is, Java is a case sensitive language. What do I mean by case sensitive language? If I say age is equals to 50, now look at the difference here, right? It got the small a and it got the capital A. You must be thinking they, as the name is age and age, they must be similar, right? But that's wrong because Java is case sensitive. AGE with a small a and AGE with a capital A are two different variables or two different memory spaces getting created inside our memory. Okay, so you should be mindful about this, right? So Java is case sensitive, and another thing which I want to talk about is Java is a strongly typed language also, right? So if I'm saying integer age is equals to 30, I cannot store anything other than number inside this age variable. So I'm trying to store a string. This is a text actually with double quotes, and I'm going to talk about strings. I'm trying to save a string inside an integer variable, and that is not possible. Okay, so there's a couple of points which I would like to talk about. Now let's talk about, maybe there is a possibility, right? You might have a variable, okay, with a long name, right? So I'll give you the example. Like I can have a name of a variable with my age today, something like this, is equals to maybe 35. And I'm going to give it a data type of integer. So whenever you have a variable with multiple words, right, we use something called a camel case. We call it camel case. Okay, camel case convention. What is the meaning of camel case convention? So my age today, these are three different words, right? So when we start with small my, then we capital the first character of the other words. Like in this case, I'm capitalizing P. So this is a convention we generally follow, just to name our variables, which has a long name. So age today, maybe I'm going to write And let's try to output this one, my age today. And I'm going to compile first, and then I'm going to run it. See that? Age today is 35. So this is about variables. So you can create variables using something like that, like this, right? Now let's move on and talk about the next topic. If you want to take a quick pause here, I would suggest take a quick pause, come back, and next I'm going to talk about is a string. Okay, so I hope you had a quick pause and you came back fresh, right? So I'm going to talk about string in this part of the video. So in programming, right, you need to create text. Say suppose someone's name, right? Or maybe you want to write a long text, any kind of text. We generally create text using something called a string data type in Java. Now this is a strange name, string. Why they didn't give it a name of text only? I don't know. But string is something which we use for creating the string variables. So for this purpose, I'm going to create a new class just to demonstrate the string. So I'm going to create a new class where I'm going to create a school actually. So let's start with school.java file. I'm going to create a school, and inside my school, I'm going to put the main method. And let's create some string variables here. Like school can have a, so when we want to create a string data type variable, we type string. Then obviously we have to give the name of the variable. So maybe I can use class name here, and class name, maybe I'm going to use English. See that? So whenever you want to represent text, whenever you want to create text data type in Java, the most important thing is give the data type name as string, then the name of the variable, the class name. And whenever you want to create a string, you use double quotation mark. Remember this. This is really important. You use double quotes, not single quote. If you try to use single quotes, it's going to throw an error. Okay. So always use double quotes. So let me try to print this out. Maybe I'll use my shortcut S out, and I'm going to write, or maybe let's create some more variables. Let me create another string variable, say string class name. Let's start. Class is going to have a class teacher also, right? So I'm going to create a class teacher, and maybe our class teacher name is Ankit Joshi. Okay. So when you have a multiple words, you can have a multiple words in your string variable, right? You can have many longer string also. So I'm using just 2-word name here, but you can have multiple things also, right? So let's try to print this out. Maybe I'll have something like this. So I'll write class. Okay, and I'm going to show you how you can join the strings together, right? So I'm using a string called class, and I'm going to join that string with my variable, right? So class name. So class, I'm saying class name. So I'm basically joining two different strings here, right? Class plus class name. Now, what is the value of class name? That is English. So class English. Then I would use another plus. So I'm doing multiple concatenation here, and I'm putting a space is taken by, again another space, and I'm going to name the class teacher here. So what it is going to output actually. So class, it's going to grab the class name value English from here. Then it's going to join it by is taken by, and then class teacher is Ankit Joshi. See that? So you can join strings together using something called a plus operator. Let's clear the console terminal. I'm going to first compile my code. So it's school.java. And hopefully I don't have any errors. So I'm going to run my school class, and see that class English is taken by Ankit Joshi. Now I would like to talk about the white spaces. These white spaces are added by me. That's why the statement is formatted in pretty good English, I would say. But if I remove this, these are not added by Java automatically. Let's try. I'll remove some spaces, and I'm going to compile my code once again. And I'm going to run it. See that? Class English. Now that space is actually added by me, not by Java. So it's always a good idea to have those white spaces, between different strings which we are trying to concatenate. So we can combine strings together, but we can combine strings with numbers also. So let me create another variable here. So let me create an integer variable, right? And I'm going to talk about integers in the upcoming part of the video. So integer, I'm going to create a new integer variable called experience, and maybe I'll put some 10 number here. And I'm going to create one more system.out here. And this time I'm going to write class teacher, and then I'm going to have space, and I'm going to use the teacher name. So class teacher. Okay, so class teacher Ankit Joshi plus I'm going to have another space has another space. Then I'm going to say experience. So this time, I'm concatenating a string with an integer. And then probably I'll say years of teaching. So what I'm doing here, what I'm trying to do here, basically class teacher Ankit Joshi has experience. Now experience is not a string. It's a number, right? But I can concatenate string with a number. That works. Years of teaching. So let's debug this. First of all, I'm going to clear. And first step is to, compile our code. Then I'm going to run it. See that class teacher Ankit Joshi has 10 years of teaching experience. 10 years of teaching experience I should write actually. But let me write that. I think that will look good. Teaching experience. Let's compile, run. See that? 10 years of teaching experience. So you can concatenate string. You can concatenate strings with a number. That's quite possible. So this is about string. Just a quick recap. String data type you need to use. Variable name equals to, then you can have a long string, multiple words, or a single word also. It depends. And you should use double quotes. Don't use single quotes. It doesn't work. Okay. So next, let's move on, and I'm going to talk about characters. If you want to take a quick pause, come back, and we can continue with the characters. But I'm going to continue this video. You can take a pause and go and take some walk and come back. So I'm going to talk about characters now. So for that purpose, I'm going to create a new Java file. That will be really simple one. I'm going to create a form.java. And inside form.java, I'm going to have my main method. And here, so it's like a form, you might have seen a form where, you input some of your values, right? Like take the example of maybe the first name, last name, gender, all those fields are there in the form. So so I'm creating a class for that particular form here. So inside this form, I'm going to create a character data type variable. So for char, we use char or car, and I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to give a name of gender. And when we create a character variable or character data type data, remember you have to use a single quote. And I'm using M here, M for male. And now you cannot write like this, okay? Then it will become a string, right? So you should have, so when you create a character variable or character data bit, you can have only one character inside as a value. And you cannot have double quotes. You have to use single quotes only. So this is really, really important. Let's do the S out of our gender. And I'm going to say gender. Now I'm going to clear my terminal. Let's first compile form.java. And I'm going to run form.java. See that? Gender M. I'll show you. I'll try with MALE. Okay. And let's try to compile this. See that? I'm getting an error like unclosed character literal, right? It's not allowing, right? So you should have one and only one character inside your gender. Now you must be thinking, why to use characters? You can use string, right? Let's convert this into string data type. Use double quotes and change the character to string. right? Always use string. I mean, nothing wrong in it. I mean, I would suggest go ahead and do that. But there are minor or small things you need to remember. So what is the difference between string and a character data type? So when we talk about memory and performance, right? So character data type is a primitive data type. Now this is a new jargon, new word, primitive. I'm not going to get into the details of primitive now. Primitive and object, we're going to discuss later on. Okay. So it's a primitive data type, but I want to tell you the important difference. It takes less space in the memory, right? So I'll give you an example. Say suppose you have two different sugar boxes. One sugar box with 1 kg size and one sugar box with a 5 kg size, right? And if you got 1 kg sugar from the market, right, you're going to put that inside a 1 kg sugar box, right? Not in the 5 kg sugar box, because if you put inside a 5 kg sugar box, you're wasting 4 kg of space. Why would you do that? Similarly, character takes less memory in the computer's memory, I would say, less space in the computer's memory, and it's fast, it's efficient also. So when we are printing this here, it's fast. Obviously you can't see that difference when I converted this into a string, but that's the reason. So whenever you feel like, okay, I'm going to have one character only, go ahead and use character, nothing wrong in it. And when you have a long string, just go ahead and use string. Otherwise you can use string always. It doesn't make a lot of difference, but when it comes as a part of memory and performance, I would suggest to use characters over string. Okay, so I think this is about string. Let's have a quick pause here, come back, and we are going to talk about integers and long, but I'm going to continue. So let's talk about numbers. So why we use integers and a long, right? And what is the difference between integers and long? So for that purpose, I'm going to create a new class. I'm going to give it a name of very familiar name basically. So we are going to create a galaxy class. Okay. So galaxy.java. And I have my galaxy class. I'm going to put my main body here. And inside this, I'm going to create an integer. So when you want to store whole numbers, not decimal numbers, there's other category of number which is called decimal numbers, which has a decimal point. When you want to store whole numbers, you can use integer. And when you want to store small integer number, you can use integer, because there is something long which I'm going to talk about. So let's create integer. Maybe I'm going to have planets, and maybe we have 8 planets, right? So I'm creating an integer data type with the name of planets, and I'm putting a number 8 as a value into it. Let's print it out. So maybe there are space planets. Okay, I'll use planets in our, I don't know exactly what I need to write. I'm just writing the galaxy in our galaxy. Maybe the statement is wrong. I'm not good in geography. So system.there are planets. So let's clear. And first of all, compile our code, galaxy.java. Cool. I got the class file. Now I'm going to use galaxy. I'm going to run it. So there are 8 planets in our galaxy. Okay. So when you want to use small numbers, small whole numbers, you can use integers. So I'm going to create another variable I'm going to try. So there is a range. We have a range to integers, right? So integers can go up to 2 billions. What is meaning of billion, right? So again, ask Google, how many zeros billion have? I think 9. See that? 9. So 9 zeros. So up to 90 number you can put inside the integers. So say suppose I have a variable and 2 billion, okay? Not 90 doesn't mean 3 billion, 4 billion, 2 billion only, 2 and 9 zeros. So I want to create a new variable called number of, maybe I want number of stars. So I want to create a variable, and let's consider, there are like 5 billion stars in the galaxy. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 zeros, right? Now you see here, right? I can't store that number of stars, that 5 billion number inside number of stars integer variable, because integer has a limitation. It can store only up to 2 billion. if I try to, sys out this, maybe I'll create some statement here. There are number of star, stars in our galaxy. Okay, I'm going to save, first compile. See that? Integer number too large. I cannot store this number because it is greater than 2 billion. So to do that, I need to convert this into something called a long data type. And I need to put a special character called L here. This is really important. You should have a L for the long data type. Now if I save, go back and compile, it compiled, right? And I can run. So there are 8 planets and there are 5 billion stars in our galaxy. Again, you must be asking, same question, right? When we had for string and character, when to use integer and when to use long. I think the answer is simple, right? When you have small number less than 2 billion, go ahead and use integers. And when you have a long number, right? Or a big number, large number, right? More than 2 billion, you can use long. And long has a length of somewhere around 9 quintillion, I think. So let's see what is quintillion. Quintillion meaning. So quintillion is nothing but, or how many zeros quintillion has? Quintillion zeros, 18 zeros, right? So up to that zero number, I think you can use for a long variable. And you can always search the size of integer in, sorry, I need to write size of integer in Java. And it will give you that size, 32-bit, and it will give you the range also, like what is the range of that. You can search for long, and you're going to get, it's a 64 bit, so 2 to the power 64. So you can always get that range, and you can see like what kind of data, how long data you can store, inside that particular data type. So always Google it. I mean, you don't need to remember everything. I mean, if you try to remember everything, how much you can remember, right? You need to unload something to load something into your memory. So this is about integers and long. Let's talk about the last data type, that is called decimals. And for decimals, I'm going to create a new class called bank. Let's talk about money. Bank.java. Inside bank.java, I'm going to have a main method. Why man, main is not coming? Okay. Okay, I got the main method here, and inside my bank.java, now there are two different types of numbers, right? One is a whole number which doesn't have a decimal point, but there is other category of number which is a floating point number, which has a decimal point. Let's take the example of money, right? And might have 1,000.50 dollars in your bank account, right? So for this, we cannot use integer or a long data type here because they are for whole numbers. So when you want to have a decimal number or a decimal data type, you should use double. Okay, double money equals to this. And I can say S out. I have, sorry, plus money plus money in my bank. And let's run it. First of all, I'm going to clear. You need to do Java C bank.java. Again, I'm going to say Java bank. And I have 1,000.50 cents money in my bank, or 1,000 rupees and 50 as a change, right, in my bank. And so this is about double, right? When you have a decimal numbers, you are going to use double. I can tell you, I want to give you one more example actually. If you try, you can't make it integer or long. If you try to do that, it's going to throw an error. Let me show you that also. So if I try to compile this, it's getting compiled, but I'll show you what is the problem if you make it integer, right? Okay. What did I do wrong? Maybe I did save my program. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to compile it. Sorry, I'm going to compile it. Java C, Java C, Java C. Okay. See that it's throwing an error. So you cannot make it integer actually. You have to make it double. I want to show you another scenario. Maybe I'm going to create another double variable and I'm going to name it interest rate. Okay. And maybe I'm going to put a 7 as a number. Now this is double, but it doesn't have a decimal point, right? And so what Java is going to do in this case? So I'm just going to print the interest rate here. So I have saved my file now this time. I'm going to compile it first. It's getting compiled. I'm going to run it. See that it has added that dot zero. I mean, it has converted that into actually a floating point number, a decimal number. So even if you don't specify that dot zero, Java automatically adds that. So that is one of the important thing you need to consider. Now let's talk about a very, very important point. Whenever you want to do any mathematical calculation related to money, right? Money is a really important factor. So any mathematical calculation, whenever you want to do, say suppose you want to divide something and its output is going to come in a decimal or a floating value, you have to use double. Always use double whenever there is a math. Don't use integer or long in that case. So let's have an example, okay? So first of all, I'm going to use integers. So integer result, and I'm not going to have anything in the result. And let's have a 12, or I'll use 13. Sorry, I'll create a dividend as 13, and I'm going to create another variable called divisor. I'm just keeping the example simple, right? And now I'm going to s out this. I'm going to first output have a result. So result, I'm going to say dividend divided by divisor. Now, what are you thinking? What will be the output, right? You must be thinking that 13 divided by 2 will come into 6 point something, right? Let's see. S out. And I'm going to print the result. Or maybe, I'll just use something like this result. Okay. I'm going to compile first. It compiled. Very good. I'm going to run it. See that the result is 6. What about the floating point value 6 dot? So whenever you want to do any mathematical calculation like division, multiplication with floating point numbers, or even with the normal whole numbers, and if the result is going to come in decimal, don't use integers, man. This is going to ruin your program, ruin your calculation, right? So always convert them into a double value. So double, double, double. And now if I save, if I compile first, and now if I run, see that 6.5. That's the correct output. So this is really, really important point you should remember, right? So always use double when you want to have a mathematical calculation. So I think that's it. I have covered all the different data types, most widely used data types in Java. I've talked about, like, there are different types of data types, right? We have, if you want to write strings or text values with multiple characters or multiple words, you can use string. You can use characters if you're going to have just single character. You can use integer and long integer if you have small whole numbers, long if you have large whole numbers. And we talked about decimals where, if you have a floating point numbers or decimal numbers, you can use decimals. So finally, if you want to take a quick pause here, take it, come back, and let's have a challenge. So let's start with the challenge. So this is a challenge which I want you to execute basically. So this is more of, introduction. You're introducing yourself. So you need to create a class called intro.java. And inside that, you need to output this using the system.out.println. But to output this, you're going to create different data types, different variable, and which I have underlined. So when you're going to create a variable Sandip Gautam. This is the value, right? So this is like a name. So you need to decide what's going to be the data type of Sandip Gautam. You can put your name here actually. What would be the data type of computer science? Then I pass my engineering with what would be the data type 78.5. What would be the data type of A 18 7 to 8 billion? So, look into it, go through the statement, and you need to print it. You need to output it using string concatenation, number concatenation, double concatenation, decimal concatenation, all those things. So I'm going to take a pause here, think through it, solve this problem by yourself, because if you don't code by yourself, you're not going to understand anything. I'm being honest with you. I mean, if you want to learn coding, you have to practice it. So I'm going to take a quick pause. You solve this problem by yourself, and then you come back and see how I'm going to solve this problem. Okay, so hopefully you have solved this problem. So I'm going to create a class called intro.java. Intro.java. And I'm going to have my main method. Oh man, why main is not coming? Okay, now I'll start. Hi, I'm Sandip Gautam. So this Sandip Gautam, obviously it's a string. So I'm going to have a Sandip Gautam as a string. Okay, semicolon. Right. So this is going to be a string data type, and I'm going to name it name. Pretty simple, right? Let's move on. I'm computer science engine. Now computer science is a degree, right? A degree. So I'm going to create a string with the name of degree, and I'm going to put computer science into it. Cool. Next, I have passed my engineering with 78.5%. Now this is a decimal value. So for decimal, we use something called a double, and this is percentage. So I'm going to say percentage, and I'm going to store 78.5. This is double. Then and a grade, right? So this is a char, right? Because we have a single character. So I'm going to say grade, and this is a char. So I'm going to put a inside it. Okay, I have been working in IT for 18 years. Now this is a whole number. So for whole number, we use integers, right? And this is a small whole number. So I'm going to use integer, integer grade, sorry, not integer years. So I'm going to say experience. Okay, experience is equals to 18. Or you can say total number of experience also. I mean, depends. Some of my challenging projects involved 7 to 8 billions of users accessing our application in a month. 7 to 8 billion is a bigger number, so I cannot use integer. I have to use long. So this will be users, and I'm going to put that 8 billion number into 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, L. And remember that L, we have to use the long. Now let's do the system.out.println, and I'm going to type this. So this will start with hi. I need to put my name, right? So I'm going to put a plus sign here and then a name. Okay. And now I'm going to press enter. I'm going to put another plus sign and I'm going to put another string here. So this will be, I'm going to have a full stop here, then space. I am. Then I'm going to combine it. I'm going to have space here also. Degree, right? So this will be my degree. I'm going to put another enter here, another plus sign, another quotation, double quotes. I passed. So engineer. Okay. Degree. I am computer science engineer, right? So I need to write engineer also. So I'm going to put engineer here actually. Plus space engineer and space. Or maybe I can take this engineer below also. Let's try that. Space engineer. And I'm going to have full stop. Then another plus. I have passed my engineering with, okay, so I'm going to take this on the next line. I have passed, just to keep my code clean, I'm taking it on next line. I have passed my engineering with percentages, right? So I'm going to use my percentages, percentage variable. I'm going to press enter plus percentage and percent. I'm going to put percent here. So percent, then I'm going to have and also, right? So and a grade plus, I'm not going to use plus here, just plus, and I'm going to put my grade here, right? And grade, or maybe I can combine grade here also. That is also possible. So let's do that. Grade, another plus here, and this is going to have a full stop. Okay, then space. I have been working in IT for 18 years. IT for what is 18, right? So that 18 is nothing but my experience, right? 18 plus, I'm going to put space, yes, full stop. Good. Next, I'm going to have another plus just below that, and I'm going to have some, I'm going to space some of my challenging projects involved. Challenging projects involved. This is a long statement. 7 to 8 billions. So that is nothing but users, right? Plus of users accessing, of users accessing our application in a month. Quite challenging project. Month. Okay, full stop. Hopefully this should work. So let's try clear the console first. Let's see Java C intro dot Java and Java intro. See that? Hello, I'm Sandip Gautam. I'm computer science engineer. I don't have space. I should have a space here, right? Okay. I have passed my engineering with this much percentage and a grade. I forgot to add a grade, right? So let's have a grade here. I've been working in IT for 18 years. Some of my challenging projects involved 8 billion of users accessing our application a month. Looks good. I'm going to compile again. First of all, let's clear. Java C, Java, Java. Okay, so I'm computer science engineer. I passed my engineering a grade. I forgot to add a space here. Okay, and I think this is okay. I think I've corrected it. Should work fine. So I think hopefully you have enjoyed this challenge. We have used all different types of data types, which gets used in Java most of the time, most frequently. I tried to cover all those data types. So and we had a very good challenge, I would say, pretty good challenge to use our knowledge, use our skills of creating data type, creating variables in Java. Hopefully you've enjoyed the challenge, and I'm going to continue this series, Java Bootcamp series. I'll come with another video, another topic, maybe soon. So until then, you take care and goodbye.